Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Warrant Officer Elizabeth Crean. This evening we warmly welcome Carly Brand, CEO of the National Australia Day Council, and the accompanying delegation. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, I invite you all to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant Duncan Arthur Allan. Duncan Allan was born on the 18th of April 1922 in Bangalore, a small town in the Northern Rivers region of New South Wales, about 170 kilometres south of Brisbane. The only son born to Arthur and Jenny Allan, after schooling, he went to work as a sawmill hand at Caboolture and lived nearby in Morayfield, just north of Brisbane. Allan had been in the senior cadets for about a year and a half by the time he had turned 18, at which point he transferred to the militia, joining the 9th Battalion in September 1941. Initially raised in Queensland for service in the First World War, the battalion later became a militia unit and was known as the 9th Battalion AMF in order to distinguish it from the 2nd 9th Battalion, which had been raised in Queensland shortly after the outbreak of the Second World War. While the 2nd 9th would fight in North Africa, the 9th AMF began by performing garrison duty in Australia. During this time, Allan attended various schools of instruction and training, and on the 9th of September 1942 was promoted to corporal. After a brief period of confinement brought on by an ingrown toenail, he continued duty, but in March the following year was suffering from the same problem and had to be evacuated for treatment. By this point, the 2nd 9th Battalion had returned to Australia after enduring fierce fighting, tropical diseases, and heavy casualties during the beachhead battles in New Guinea. Whether what Allan heard from the returned men convinced him to enlist for overseas service or made him query his decision, it's not known. But on the 29th of March 1943, at the General Hospital of the 2nd 9th Battalion, he enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force. After a month of leave during January and February the following year, and a promotion to sergeant in April, Allan was ready for overseas service. On the 29th of August 1944, he left for Cairns, arriving in Madang in early September, and from there travelled to Bougainville, landing in mid-November. By this point in the war, the Australian military was conducting aggressive operations on Bougainville, aiming to destroy the Japanese garrison and quickly bring the campaign to a conclusion, with the aim of freeing up troops to be used elsewhere. The 9th Battalion had just moved headquarters to the Suraj trial area, and in late November moved again to Erie. A single shot fired from nearby Little George Hill signalled the opening of a new campaign. On the 18th of December 1944, the battalion launched an attack on an enemy-held position known as Artillery Ridge. The Japanese forces were active, using grenades and machine guns as the Australians approached. The battalion's war diary for that day notes how the assault began. Sergeant Allan, on the right flank, was the first to move over the crest, and on reaching the top, the shot enemy machine gunner and was killed immediately by a shot through the head. The enemy was eventually mopped up, but Duncan Arthur was the first of 5 Australians to die during the operation. He was buried nearby, but after the war, his remains were reburied at Torquay War Cemetery, where they now lie under the epitaph chosen by his grieving family, "Ever in our thoughts." His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of sacrifice and service told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant Duncan Arthur Allan, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.